spirit of 1.8 million West Virginians wills you to victory. Other places have pro teams, but in this state, the Mountaineers are a way of life.
When I competed and wore that number, I competed for the state and for the people, not just for the university.
Now, let's roll out the carpet and bring on the Mountaineers.
Pitts on a spree.
Yes! Alexander. Robinson comes goal. It's a dunk right in his face. Send it in, Joe. Butler into the lane, into traffic. It goes again. West Virginia has won its first Big East championship.
So long, Big Blue. Hello, Golden Blue. The West Virginia Mountaineers are going to the Final Four.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back to the Country Roads webcast here for our post-game live stream following the West Virginia loss, unfortunately, to Kansas in the Big 12 quarterfinals. Coincidentally enough, almost the complete inverse of their score last night when they beat Texas Tech, 78-62 victory for the Mountaineers. Tonight against the Kansas Jayhawks, a 78-61 loss for the Mountaineers, unfortunately, in this one. And eerily enough, it kind of seemed like Kansas did a lot of the things to West Virginia that West Virginia did to Texas Tech as well. Kansas out-rebounding the Mountaineers, Kansas getting up more field goal attempts, more shots than the Mountaineers, which is something the Mountaineers always strive for. So, unfortunately, it was almost a complete inverse of what you saw the night before in round one of the Big 12 tournament for West Virginia, but now they do have the NCAAs to look forward to at least. We know that they're solidly in the NCAA tournament, just got to see what seed they wind up with. The downside to where it looks like they're going to wind up seed-wise, it's probably going to be in the 8 to 10 range. Doubtful that you'll climb up to the 7 range, but regardless, in that 7 to 10 seed range, which is where West Virginia is going to fall, and I think probably more likely 8, 9, or 10. In the second round, if you win your first round game, you're going to either have to play number 1 seed or number 2 seed, so therein lies the challenge, but you just got to hope you get a good matchup in the NCAA tournament moving forward. But as far as this game is concerned, I thought West Virginia, in my opinion, what I saw, especially in the first half, specifically talking about their turnovers reared their head again. West Virginia also missed some free throws in the first half that I thought were crucial. Ended up doing a better job on both of those areas, taking better care of the basketball in the second half and shooting better from the free throw line in the second half. But offensively, just throughout the entire game, the ball movement didn't seem to be there that really has been there here on this late season run where West Virginia had won 4 to the last 5. And even in the game that they lost, out of those 5 was, of course, to Kansas by 2 in Allen Fieldhouse. As we know, in that game, the ball movement was better. West Virginia was able to score over 70 points. This game was actually looked more like the first time West Virginia matched up with Kansas. So I thought ball movement really was an issue today, or lack thereof. There really wasn't a lot of ball movement. Second half, maybe a little bit better, but overall, that's the one thing I thought that really hurt our offense. I don't know if Kansas's length has something to do with that. They are a very long team. We struggled against them this year, turning the basketball over, even in that game where it was close. The last one there in Allen Fieldhouse, West Virginia had 20 turnovers in that game as well. So I think, Kansas may be just a bad matchup for West Virginia, but let's be honest, this is a really tough Kansas team. They've got a chance to repeat. There's a reason they're the number 1 seed and, probably the favorite to win the Big 12 tournament as well, and maybe the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And I think it's well-deserved probably for them. The Big 12 by far toughest conference in basketball, if you're asking me. But one more complaint for me I've got to get off my chest. I'm not saying that this had any effect on the game whatsoever. Kansas played their heart out and would have beat West Virginia regardless. But just a personal complaint for me. I hate the fact that the tournament's in Kansas City. Just watching the game, you can hear the crowd. It's pretty much a home crowd for Kansas, of course. And I think it's not a coincidence that Kansas or Iowa State is one of the teams that usually wins the Big 12 conference tournament. I think, Brett Yormark has mentioned maybe moving the conference tournament, and I am definitely a fan of that personally. I'd love to see it in New York. I know Madison Square Garden would be great just to throw back to the Big East days, but I think the Barclays Center may be more likely with, Mark's, connections with Brooklyn and the Nets and stuff, or not Nets, so whatever they're called now. Can't think of it, but off the top of my head. But anyway, that's just kind of my opening thoughts. I'll pull up the stats here. We'll talk about those in a second. But everyone in here, if you would, just, drop your thoughts on the game. Give me your comments. Let's have a little dialogue here. We'll talk a little bit as we go throughout here. I'll stay with you guys for a little bit and talk a little bit about West Virginia's start to postseason play, winning one game in the Big 12 tournament, and unfortunately not putting on the greatest performance against Kansas. But like I said, the silver lining that we do know is West Virginia is locked into the NCAA tournament. So get to see where we're going to be on Selection Sunday here in a few days. I'll probably drop a CRW Hoops podcast episode on Selection Sunday or there close after to preview the matchup for the tournament, talk about West Virginia C, talk a little bit about this Big 12 there. But here now, just a little bit of reaction to this game against Kansas. Gave my opening thoughts. I'm going to pull up the numbers and dive in on a little bit more deep. But any thoughts you guys there, drop them in. We'll talk about it together here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. David Cummings, like I said, appreciate that comment, man. 18 hours in between games is a lot to ask, especially when taking on one of the best two teams in the country. Yeah, I'd agree 100%. I think right now, in my opinion, Kansas is, like I said, probably the best team in the country, probably going to get the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, especially if they end up winning out and winning the Big 12 tournament here. I think them and Iowa State's going to be a good game, though, but definitely think that they're well deserving of that, so they're up for it. Kenny said, my bad, I was way off of my prediction. Yeah, Kenny, I know. I was too, man. I was feeling it, though, with you. This team is playing good, and they can play with anybody, and I think especially in the second half, they showed spurts there where they could, play with Kansas as well. And they've shown it, in that game in Allen Fieldhouse, they can. And if Kansas is the best team in the country right now, that just shows you how good West Virginia can be. And while we still should have hope here for the NCAA tournament that they could potentially make a run, despite the fact that if they win a first round matchup, they're going to play either a number 1 or a number 2 seed likely in the second round. But we know the Big 12 is very tough. So West Virginia is definitely battle tested. I do like that, but I agree, Kenny. I feel like I've jinxed them a little bit myself, but hey, who knows? Hopefully that motivates them even more for the NCAA tournament. And at least now maybe they get a little bit more rest. That's maybe a little bit of a silver lining as well you could talk about, is the fact that if West Virginia would have made a run here in the Big 12 tournament, they would have played, 4 games in 4 days. That's going to take a lot out of you. And then coming around, and it would be less than a week probably until your first NCAA tournament game. Now, your last game being here on Thursday, you're getting at least a week's rest before you play in the tournament. And if you play on Friday, you get that extra day as well. So who knows if you're going to play Thursday or Friday in the NCAA tournament, but that's something positive. I try and keep it positive in some ways here. But Kenny also says, I think they were happy about their seed and didn't want to lose their legs for the big dance. Yeah, perfect. I didn't even see that comment, Kenny, but that goes right along with what I just mentioned there as well. Get a little bit extra rest here at least now. With this one. But David, Kenny, appreciate you guys commenting. Anyone else that's in here, definitely throw your thoughts in on this game between West Virginia and Kansas. Unfortunately, 78-61 victory for the Jayhawks. West Virginia is going to head into the NCAA tournament just shy of 20 wins on the season with 19 right now. But I'm going to pull up the stats here and we'll dive in on those. Take a drink of my coffee while I pull these up real quick. Bear with me. All right, guys, let's see here. Like I said, West Virginia, in the game against Texas Tech, 62, they fall in this one 61-78. And in a lot of ways, Kansas did West Virginia what West Virginia did to Texas Tech. I believe Texas Tech had 55 field goals. West Virginia had 56. I think West Virginia in that game against Texas Tech had 66 field goals. Kansas gets 63. So the recipe that West Virginia used, it's like Kansas used that same recipe against West Virginia, or just basically played West Virginia's game better than West Virginia, really, including shooting better at the three-point line and getting to the free throw line more. If there's two things you want to see from West Virginia on this team stats sheet, I would say it's West Virginia have more field goal attempts than their opponent, and West Virginia have more free throw attempts than their opponent. You can see in this game against Kansas, neither one of those happened for the Mountaineers. Kansas getting off more shots, Kansas getting off more free throw attempts, Kansas shooting 52% from the field. That hurts as well. West Virginia, unfortunately, this season has seen that all too much. their opponent have over 50% field goal percentage. The Mountaineers struggled in the first half greatly shooting the basketball and scoring. We know they only had 23 points to the break. So, like I said, better job in the second half, and they were able to get up to 44% from the field at least. Three-pointers also, this is reminiscent of West Virginia's first-round game against Texas Tech. West Virginia held Texas Tech to 3 3-pointers in that game. The Mountaineers hit 4 against Kansas here, and the Mountaineers only shoot 21% from the three-point line. Kansas going 35%, 7 of 20, and it seemed like all of theirs were big. Because one thing I noticed in this game, it seemed to me in the second half when West Virginia was playing a lot better and trying to battle back, they got it down to 4 at least one time, maybe a couple times. But the bad thing was it seemed like every time West Virginia got it to 5, 4, 6 points right there where it would be kind of manageable, the very next possession, Kansas would hit a very critical three-point shot, usually Grady Dick, who had a strong second half there. But just like the Mountaineers could get it right there within, a couple possessions, but couldn't get over that hump, just couldn't get the stops that they needed there in the second half. Unfortunately, Kansas just has a lot of weapons. And when you get behind and dig yourself a hole like West Virginia did in the first half of this game, it's really hard to climb out of that. And then rebounding, like I said, Kansas out rebounding West Virginia. We know West Virginia has been kind of a mixed bag rebounding this season, particularly in the earlier portion. It's been much improved as of late with a couple of outliers here, and most of those outliers have resulted in losses for the Mountaineers, unfortunately. The most recent one that comes to mind is the home game against Texas Tech. They should have won there to close out the regular season, but Kansas out-rebounding the Mountaineers overall 37-31, but also hitting the offensive glass. You hate to see the Mountaineers give up 8 offensive rebounds, but rebounded on both ends of the basketball, and ultimately Kansas out-rebounding them by 6 overall. And then, as you can see, the ball movement for West Virginia, not there as much as it was the night prior against Texas Tech. I think when West Virginia has a lot high assist-to-turnover ratio, that's when you've seen this team play its best basketball. Here, it's not bad. You get the 1-to-1. West Virginia only ends up turning the ball over 13 times. Much better job in the second half. They had 9 at least in the first half, I know. Kansas only turned the ball over 11 times. You would like to see the Mountaineers force more turnovers than that, but also this kind of plays into my theory that I've said 12 turnovers or less is when the West Virginia Mountaineers have had success. Really close here. 13, not terrible job compared to some of the things we've seen from the Mountaineers this season, but a lot of those were just unforced errors, unfortunately. And like I said, for me, the ball movement really wasn't there for West Virginia. Only 13 assists in the game. Seemed like they just weren't moving the ball around a lot. It was someone standing around dribbling and everyone was standing around watching, not too much movement off the ball. And then West Virginia was not making the defense move at all. It was one pass and shoot a lot of times, or whoever was dribbling, trying to take their man one-on-one, and just was not the recipe we've seen be successful for West Virginia. So there are some of the team stats. I'm going to pull up the individuals. Let me come back here with you guys, see if anybody thoughts in here. Eric Cruz, what's going on, Dad? Didn't get to watch game, but apparently wasn't same team of yesterday, but I know Kansas is a much better team. Yeah, that's definitely what I would say. I appreciate you commenting, Dad, but didn't get to watch the game, he says. So one thing I can tell you is definitely it was basically the complete opposite of the performance against Texas Tech, right down to the score, 62-78 win for West Virginia over Texas Tech, 61-78 loss here to Kansas. Everything West Virginia did to Texas Tech, Kansas turned around and did to West Virginia in this game. And like you said, Kansas certainly a much better team. I think they might be the best team in the country right now. Could be on their way to the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. And who knows, they may be on their way to do something not a lot of teams do, and that's repeat. So we'll see what happens to them in the NCAAs. But I like the Big 12's chances to have some teams in there making deep runs, including West Virginia, depending on what type of draw they get. Kenny says, I'm worried about Johnson toward the end of the game. He got hurt. Yeah, I saw that. Excuse me. I saw that. Let me take a sip of this coffee real quick. Yeah, I was wondering what happened on that play, Kenny, because he had almost a clear lane after he got by a guy there on the layup, and then ended up not going for the layup and kind of just dropping the ball off to a guy behind him, and then he fell into the stands almost and was kind of limping after that. So hopefully he's all right. I'm sure we'll hear about that soon. But like you said, the good thing is they got at least a week off before they'll be playing again in the first round NCAA tournament game. So hopefully that's enough time for him to recover if it did get, something strained there or anything. But Kenny says, smash the like button, help this video get out there, guys, to help Cruz. Appreciate that a lot, Kenny. Yeah, great point. I fully agree. If you're in here live, definitely hit the like button. It really helps, not only this video, but helps get any videos we put out in the future, helps them, YouTube push them out more. So helps get more Mountaineer fans to be able to find this Mountaineer sports content. So definitely liking the video helps a lot. If you're watching this live, go ahead, drop a like on it for us here on YouTube, or even if you're watching in the future on a playback, you can still hit the like button and that'll help us. And, drop your thoughts in the comments if you're watching this in the future and you can't talk with us in the chat, but appreciate you guys there chiming in the chat there, and any other thoughts anyone has, about the game or the stats here as I go through them, go ahead, drop those in there. I'll check back with you guys. I'm going to run through these individual stats real quick. Let's take a look at Kansas first. I know Jalen Wilson had a monster day, and he's just really tough. I mean, he just makes it look so easy. He's really smooth with his game, high basketball IQ, point forward type of player, but he was really killing us on the glass. I think he had a lot of those offensive rebounds. Yeah, the most for Kansas. He had 3 offensive boards, and I think every one of them that he got, he ended up getting a put basketball. Led the Big 12 in points this year, led the Big 12 in rebounds this year. And you see why when you watch him play. It's not like he doesn't have tough defenders on him. West Virginia ran a lot of guys at him. Emmett Matthews, the primary defender, and a lot of times he was doing a great job on him. And Jalen Wilson's just hitting a tough shot. There's nothing you can do there. And then I think Grady Dick, in my opinion, if he's not the best freshman in college basketball, he's got to be top 3, top 2. Really smooth stroke. I know I've heard the announcers compare him to Reggie Miller. I like that comparison just with the body frame and how quick of a release he's got and how smooth his stroke is from the 3-point line. He's probably a one and done type guy, maybe. 18 points for him, 4-7 from the 3-point line. Excellent shooter there, especially to be a true freshman. DeJuan Harris hurt West Virginia. He has a lot this season, not only offensively where he nearly joined Jalen Wilson and having a double-double of his own, 13 points, 8 assists, but you see there 5 steals as well, and he was a little bit of a menace for the Jayhawks defensively and was getting in the lane. And then KJ Adams with a quiet 13 as well, so it's going to be tough when you're getting 4 guys in double figures. That makes you tough to beat. We've seen West Virginia do that at times this season, and they're usually tough to beat when they do that on their own. In Kansas, the thing about them is they have a multitude of guys that can do that. McCullough is a great guard for them as well. I believe he averaged double digits for them this season. He's a little bit banged up with back spasms. He didn't start in this game. You see, he only scored 3 points, but he did get 7 rebounds for them. And so, they have just a multitude of guys that can really score, shoot it, and attack you in a lot of different ways. They can go inside out, outside in. They're, like I said, one of the best teams in college basketball for a reason. Let's look at some of West Virginia's numbers individually from this game. Like I said, not the greatest performance offensively. I hated to see that. I hated to see some of the things that really hurt West Virginia rear their head in this one, especially in the first half of this game, which ultimately, unfortunately, I think was the key half because West Virginia dug themselves into a hole that they ultimately really couldn't get out of. Like I said, they played a lot better in the second half, got it down to a 2-possession game multitude of times, but couldn't get enough stops to get right back in it and, get a chance there at the end with ultimately Kansas pulling away late yet again. But the first half, West Virginia didn't shoot the ball very well. Ball movement was not there, high turnover rate, and then West Virginia missed a lot of free throws that were key in the first half as well. As you see, West Virginia as a team, as of late, we know has been well over 80%, only shooting 63% from the line in this game. And like I said earlier, only shooting 11 free throws is not a recipe for success for West Virginia either. Looking at this starters, Jimmy, fortunately, no points again in this game. I know last game he was quiet as well with only 4 points, but that was actually kind of a bit of a resurgence from where he'd been about the 5 games prior. I think he had a total of 5 points combined in those 5 games. So unfortunately, kind of reverting back in this one and only playing 9 minutes. And I think Kansas, unfortunately, is just one of those teams that's a bad matchup for Jimmy. We've seen him, get struggle in those high ball screen situations, and teams exploit that at times. But the other thing that teams really exploit with Jimmy is if they have athletic big man that can really play on the outside. Kansas really has that. KJ Adams, Jalen Wilson, guys that play their 4 and even 5 at times are, guys that can play all over the floor, and Jimmy's just not a great matchup for that. So I think that's why you saw Okonkwo outpace him in minutes, as you see here, 21-9. There, Trey Mitchell, decent game from him as well. He's been doing a good job on the glass. That continued in this one, led the Mountaineers in rebounds with 11.7 boards. Emmett Matthews, 10 points, 4 rebounds. Had a strong first half. a little bit quieter in the second half. And then Eric Stevenson, unfortunately, cooled back down for West Virginia in this game. I said in the post-game show last night when we were talking about looking ahead to this game a little bit that for West Virginia to beat Kansas, you had to have Eric Stevenson probably have 20+. You don't get that. He actually, unfortunately, goes 1 of 7 from the three-point line in this one, but hopefully that just means he's going to be due here in a week when NCAA tournament rolls around, and we're going to get a high performance from Eric Stevenson in the NCAA tournament, because I think Eric Stevenson's one of those guys that could really steal the show in March. You know, you see those stories coming out every March, guys making a run and guys getting hot at the right time. Stevenson's definitely a guy that could heat up and be a story in March, and I'd love to see him go out with the bang like that. Unfortunately, doesn't go out with the bang in the Big 12 conference tournament, but like I said, that's all right. We know he has the capability to go off at any moment. Hopefully the NCAA tournament is that moment. And then Keedy, unfortunately, he's been scoring at a high rate as well. I think he's been averaging 16+ in the past few games. Comes back down to earth himself a little bit as well and struggled at times offensively. 0 of 3 from the three-point line, and then 2 of 5 from the free throw line, which is very uncharacteristic of him. I think he had hit almost 100% during West Virginia's little mini winning streak here at the end of the season, if I remember right. If not, he's only missed 1 to 3 free throws over those probably 5-game stretch. So definitely uncharacteristic of him to go 2 of 5. And I think in the first half, one of those sequences was very crucial. He went 0 of 2 at the line, unfortunately. But like I said, can't harp on him or anything. He's been excellent for West Virginia in his final season. Really had an offensive resurgence from a player that we've been known only to really be a defensive type of player throughout the beginning of his career. I think him, Emmett, and Eric Stevenson will both bounce back. All 3 of those fifth-year guys that can't return to West Virginia, and they'll have strong NCAA tournaments as well. Bench performers, I already talked about Okonkwo briefly. Just additionally, of course, he got a block there. James Oblakwo, as you guys know, I like to refer to him, and 6 rebounds. So not a bad performance from him. I think when West Virginia plays a team that has athletic big men in the NCAA tournament, you're going to see more of James Oblakwo moving forward. Seth Wilson did hit a shot for West Virginia. Played a little bit more in this game, 14 minutes. I like seeing Seth Wilson play more minutes personally. I think he's a guy that can be a scorer. In this game, unfortunately, took 2 shots, but he did score 3 points. And then, of course, we always know the main bench scorer for West Virginia this season, and I'm sure will be in the tournament as well, as Joe Toussaint. Bit of a mixed bag from him in this game, but I thought when West Virginia needed points in the second half, he was a big factor when West Virginia was able to come close. So it was one of his better performances that we've seen in recent games, at least. And I'm hoping to see some of the better of Joe Toussaint in the NCAA tournament as well. But he ties as the Mountaineers' second leading scorer in this game with 11 points coming off the bench. Also added 4 assists and 3 steals to lead the Mountaineers in steals. So one of the better Joe Toussaint performances we've seen recently. So there's a little bit of a look at the numbers. Let me see your guys' thoughts here. If you guys got any comments, check up with you guys before we take a look at the latest bracketology. I believe it came out today from Joe Lenardi on ESPN there, but appreciate you guys that have tuned in here to this one kind of midday. I know it's a weird time. People probably still at work. Maybe they'll catch it on a playback. But like I said, even if you do catch it on a playback, be sure drop a like. It'll help. And drop your thoughts on the game in the comments, your thoughts on West Virginia's prospects of the NCAA tournament. Anything you want to add there, we appreciate the interaction. But let's take a look here on, guys, where Joe Lenardi has West Virginia seated ahead of this Big 12 tournament. I believe going into it, this is where he had them. So I don't know if they've done enough to improve their seating any from this, or what the case would be, but let's take a look here. Okay. As you can see over here on the right side, what he has West Virginia in the South region, which would be played in Louisville. West Virginia's first round games here being played in Birmingham, actually, if they were to draw this, that Joe Lenardi has as their draw in the I believe this was a couple days ago, so I believe this was heading into the Big 12 conference tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But he had West Virginia as a 9 seed. So, I mean, if West Virginia did anything to improve their seed, maybe they went up a seed, 2 at most. So, like I said, regardless, you're going to be in the 7 to 10 range, which, as you can see here right now, in the 8-9 range, according to Joe Lenardi, you would play a 1 seed in the second round in this situation. And this bracketology would be Alabama. And then if we scroll down here, if West Virginia was to end up as, say, a 10 seed or climb to a 7, I don't really see West Virginia climbing to a 7. I see him as an 8, 9, or a 10. But if you are a 10, or like I said, the more unlikely 7, I'd like to see West Virginia climb up to a 7. That's even better. I'd like to see him get a higher seed. But regardless, West Virginia is either playing a 2 seed in the second round, if they're able to win a first round game, of course. We'll see what the matchup is like that. there, but or a 1 seed. So that's the downside of where West Virginia's draw right now is, with their seeding being somewhere in that 7 to 10 range. And in my personal opinion, I think probably somewhere in that 8 to 10 range. You're gonna have to play a 1 or 2 seed in the second round if you can win your first round matchup. In this case, West Virginia matched up with Illinois. I think that'd be a good game, but definitely just wanted to take a look at that West Virginia's draw, as this will be kind of the last chance we probably get to take a look at it. And as the last bit of content, I'll probably put out basketball related until Selection Sunday when we find out West Virginia's draw. Maybe we'll try and do a live stream on Selection Sunday if I'm around or something. If not, I'll definitely be dropping a CRW Hoops podcast episode not long after that, talking about West Virginia's performance in this tournament and talking about their draw there. But appreciate you guys that have tuned into this live. Unfortunately, West Virginia fallen in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament, but ending their regular season and I guess Big 12 tournament run with 19 wins as they'll head into the NCAA tournament, just shy of 20 wins, probably looking at somewhere between an 8 to 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. But unfortunately, the Mountaineers not able to make a run at the Big 12 conference title, falling to the top seed in the tournament, the Kansas Jayhawks. But the one great thing we have to look forward to is we will be playing in the NCAA tournament, something we haven't been able to say for feels like a while. I know it was 2021 or whatever the last time we were in, but that 2020 team should have been in there. And then West Virginia, we know how things were the past couple of seasons. So I'm glad to see the West Virginia Mountaineers back at the NCAA tournament. Be on the lookout Sunday to see where they land. Who knows, maybe we'll have a live stream here, but regardless, we're going to have some content out on it. Hear from us at the Country Roads Webcast, CRW Hoops Podcast, episode 14. We'll be dropping following that Selection Sunday regardless, but like I said, maybe try and do a live stream then as well. But hopefully the Mountaineers get a good draw, get a good matchup, because I think this is a team that has the capability to play with anyone, as we've seen them play with Kansas and a lot of these tough opponents in the Big 12, and a lot of the matchups that West Virginia will have in the tournament. I find it hard to believe they'll be as tough as any of the Big 12 opponents that West Virginia has already faced in this conference that are some of the top teams in the nation. You're looking at a conference that's going to have a couple of seeds, top seeds in the tournament, a couple of 1 or 2 seeds in Kansas and Texas, and who knows how high Kansas State could climb as well. And West Virginia, not West Virginia, but the Big 12 could get 8 of their 10 teams in the NCAA tournament as well. If they do that, that's 80% of the conference, which would be a new record. No conference has ever gotten 80% of their teams into the NCAA tournament. So that just shows you how tough the Big 12 is and how battle-tested West Virginia is heading into the NCAA tournament. So there's your silver lining. Not only is West Virginia definitely in the tournament, but they have a team that I think is battle-tested and can probably play with anyone. So hopefully it's a good draw. Hopefully we see West Virginia make a run in the NCAA tournament. Certainly excited about it. Going to have a lot of content out covering the NCAA tournament, post-game reactions for that, of course, as well. We'll be here on the channel on the YouTube side, so be on the lookout for that. Drop a like on this before you head out if you're watching this live, or if you're tuning in on the playback. Let us know your thoughts in the comments on this game against Kansas, West Virginia's performance in the Big 12 tournament, and your thoughts and your prospects for West Virginia in the NCAA tournament. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's see where the West Virginia Mountaineers end up here on Selection Sunday, and hope for a nice NCAA tournament run for the West Virginia Mountaineers. I'll be back to talk about it here on the Country Roads Webcast. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.